single gunshot shatters two Utah families.
It was the worst drive of my life.
But a shocking twist stuns the family of the woman left dead. Now the man once suspected of killing her is left in limbo.
I've lost everything that was good for me.
Both sides open up exclusively to 2 News, why they may never get complete closure.
Good evening. A Utah woman shot in the head and killed. Police arrested her boyfriend, kept him in jail, and then later released him.
Well, now tonight, as part of an in-depth KUTV 2 News investigation, police admit the death was likely a suicide, or was it? A wild twist in the case just uncovered, leaving both sides opening up and talking tonight to 2 News. Brona Tumulty just spoke with Shaina Bigby's family about their shock in hearing these new developments.
Her boyfriend actually told me how the arrest and what he calls sloppy police work have ruined his life. He is now sharing his side of the story exclusively with 2 News, and we want to warn you, this story does contain some disturbing images and details.
We loved each other. I loved that woman.
Shaina Bigby, 27 years old, died by gunshot wound on June 25th, 2019. Her boyfriend, 40-year-old Cameron Lundgren, is accused of the crime.
This is about suicide. This isn't about me being a murderer.
That night, Lundgren was arrested on suspicion of murder, but 2 weeks later, he was released. The district attorney citing insufficient evidence to charge him.
You know, my life is ruined.
Lundgren agreed against the advice of his attorney to sit down with KUTV to talk about what he says really happened. Tell me what happened that night.
We got into an argument.
Lundgren says the night started with friends at his house. He says everyone was drinking when he and Shaina got into an argument. It's something he says was common when they drank.
When we were drinking and around friends, it was toxic.
It's something Shaina acknowledges in a text between her and Lundgren from June 13th, just a couple weeks earlier. Quote, "I need a sober life. I can't do this anymore, or I'm going to end up dead. I've never been so depressed and down in my life." Lundgren says after the last of their friends left that night, he found Shaina locked in their upstairs bedroom.
You know, I banged on the door. Shaina, you can't lock me out of my house.
He says he tried opening the door with this lockpick, but it was too short. A short time later, Lundgren says Shaina finally came out of the bedroom.
I was using the restroom. I heard the master bedroom door open. Shaina came into the hallway, into the doorway. She had a pistol, and she put it to her head and pulled the trigger.
Lundgren says he immediately dialed 911 and began CPR. But Shaina died the following day at the hospital. In the 2 months leading up to Shaina's death, Lundgren says there were warning signs that she was suicidal, with several text messages relaying what Lundgren calls hopelessness. She says, "I'm a worthless human." And you say, "Baby, you are not worthless. You are a great person to so many people."
You know, and I think in one of those text messages she says, I don't think people would care if I was gone. I wanted to help her achieve her goals and get out of this hopelessness state of mind.
Another record Lundgren once set straight, alleged domestic violence against Shaina during their 10-month relationship. Her dad has intimated that there was violence in this relationship. What do you say to that?
There was never physical violence, ever.
Previous reports say police were called to Lundgren's home on June 7th for a domestic violence incident.
I'm dating this girl and she just punched me in the face.
That is the 911 call made by Lundgren that night. According to the police report, when police arrived, Shaina, Lundgren, and a third person told police only a verbal altercation occurred, nothing physically violent. We searched Lundgren's court records and could find no prior charges of domestic violence or assault. But just today, Unified Police told us that based upon witness statements and a bruise on Shaina's arm, detectives believe there was a physical altercation between Shaina and Lundgren, but do not have enough proof that this occurred. And I'm just going to ask you again, point blank. You had nothing to do with her death?
No.
You did not kill her?
No.
You did not hurt her?
Mm-mm.
You didn't beat her up?
No.
There was no domestic violence?
Mm-mm.
And you did not shoot her. Lundgren hired a private investigator following his release from jail, who came to check out the crime scene Lundgren has kept mostly intact, a scene he showed us. And tell me again why you've kept it like this.
Because I want people to know that, you know, she didn't I didn't kill her. It was a suicide.
Lundgren says he took a lie detector test and the report shows he passed. But for Lundgren, he says there is one big piece of evidence that proves he's not lying. The day after the shooting, police released this statement that the gunshot was highly unlikely to be self-inflicted due to the path of the bullet. It's described from back to front and right to left.
We have x-ray images of the exact entrance of the bullet, and it was clear right to left.
Lundgren showed us the x-rays and we questioned Unified Police about it. In their statement, Unified now says the angle of the bullet was different than described by the radiologist. And when we point blank asked Unified Police, are they planning to bring charges against Cameron Lundgren? The lead investigator in the case tells us as the investigation progressed, much of the evidence supported a self-inflicted death rather than a homicide. Tell me what your life is like right now. What it's like.
My life is ruined. You know, I've lost a 15-year career. I've lost my kids. I've lost everything that was good.
As for Lundgren, while he's relieved the truth is out, he knows his arrest in this case will always follow him.
I believe that there's always going to be the people that are going to feel like I did this to her, no matter what.
Unified Police told us that all suicides are investigated as suspicious until evidence proves otherwise. They also said the investigation is still ongoing, and once all the information has been gathered and analyzed, they will update the district attorney. If this case is declined, the case will go inactive or it will be closed, but Cameron will never be officially cleared. Unified said they do not clear people. Of course, as you know, there are two sides to every story, and while Shaina cannot speak for herself, her loved ones can. Brona Tomilty joins us now. Brona, you had previously spoken with Shaina's father. This has to be a really hard day for he and her mother as well.
Absolutely. They are understandably just heartbroken over all of this. They found out today, because of our investigation, that police now believe this could have been a suicide. They say their daughter would not have pulled the trigger, but regardless of who did, they say only one person is to blame.
Shaina was a bubbly, fun little girl.
She loved adventure.
Camp, fish. She liked to go to the sand dunes a lot with her friends.
Her friends were everything to her.
She was beautiful.
She did love life. She was not an unhappy person.
John Bigby
And I'm Shaina's father.
and Dawn Pierce
I'm Shaina's mom.
know what it's like to lose a child.
I miss her every day. I miss coming home and seeing her there.
Their daughter Shaina died
It was a lethal gunshot into the head.
about 2 months ago.
First thing I thought of when I got the news was he killed my baby.
Do you still feel that way?
I do.
Pierce, speaking out for the very first time, is talking about Shaina's boyfriend, Cameron Lundgren,
My daughter wasn't with Cameron. She'd still be alive today.
someone they both worried about from the start.
I have been scared to death of him.
They tell us the relationship
They were toxic. They weren't good together.
was explosive.
He had complete and total control over her.
When he broke her nose and when he threw her down the stairs, gave her a concussion.
Was she ever violent to him?
I'm sure she was. She was a scrapper. She would stand up for herself, absolutely.
Lundgren was initially arrested, then released, and never charged over Shaina's death. Today, the family learning from police he may never be.
They suggested that the evidence does lead towards suicide.
And that they can't accept.
Do you think Shaina killed herself?
No.
Suicide, absolutely not.
Shaina's parents both still feel Lundgren is to blame.
The last time I talked to her before I went to Moab, she told me, Mom, Cameron's the devil.
Even if he didn't fire that fatal shot.
I don't believe that she did it to herself, but if there is a chance, he was the trigger.
Telling us they fear for anyone who crosses his path.
I worry for any person that gets involved with him.
For now, they're waiting to see what happens with the investigation,
I feel it's been handled poorly from the very beginning.
The truth will come out someday.
while trying to cope without their girl.
She's definitely missed. If they deem it as suicide, I'm going to go to my grave saying otherwise.
I just have faith in God He'll help us through this.
Now again, this case has not been closed. The family tells us that evidence is still being processed. Mark, Shaina, back to you.
Thank you. There are no winners in this situation. There are resources, though, available to help. If you are ever finding yourself in a dangerous situation, the first two phone numbers you see here are for the Utah and the National Domestic Violence Hotlines. That third number is the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. We will have these included on our website for you at KUTV.com.